I got a question for you, but don't raise your hands. Just in your own heart, answer this question. Have you or are you going to vote in the next few days, in the next few weeks? Answer that for yourself, and you don't have to say publicly, because that is a private thing, but it is also a tremendous privilege that we have in order to be able to vote. Not everywhere in the world does that happen, but we get to vote. We get to decide on the direction of our leaders, direction of our country, of our state, and that is a privilege. So one thing you do want to consider when you go to the polls, perhaps, people do consider this, is Jesus a Republican or a Democrat? You may laugh, but you will probably encounter people who absolutely are sure of what the answer is to that question. They will tell you how Jesus has aligned with their politics. Not so much on how they have aligned with Jesus, but how they believe Jesus aligned with their politics is going to help them with their fears, with their desires, with their wants. And I'll tell you, look at it. You've probably heard it before. We're the party that aligns with Jesus. Does Jesus align with your politics, or do you align with Jesus? Are you hoping that Jesus will help in order for your desires and needs to be met? Or are you willing to align and trust in Jesus and give Jesus your fears, your concerns, your wants, your needs? Do you align with Jesus? The Herodians were a party of sorts that aligned with the Roman government in the time of Jesus. Their very name was named after Herod the king, and they kind of buddied up to the king in order that they would be safe. They were willing to align with a despot, with a cruel leader, in order to be safe. And then there was the Pharisees. The Pharisees was the religious establishment. And the religious establishment didn't like Jesus because he threatened their position. He was a revolutionary. Not a violent revolutionary, but a revolutionary just the same. He was a rebel who was teaching things that were so out of line with the Herodians and the Pharisees. But the Herodians and the Pharisees had something in common. They were threatened by Jesus. So they would do anything to trip Jesus up. And in Matthew chapter 22, we hear this: then the Pharisees went out and laid plans to trap him in his words, to trap Jesus in his words, to trip him up. You know how when we have these debates, the opponents are always trying to trip up the other opponent, have them say things that can be pointed out as a problem that they have. So they sent their disciples, both the Herodians and the Pharisees, and said, "Teacher, we know that you're a man of integrity, that you teach the way of God in accordance with the truth. You aren't swayed by others because you pay no attention to who they are. Tell us then, what is your opinion? Is it right to pay the imperial tax to Caesar or not?" And by the way, the imperial tax was a tax that was put on the non-Romans, a fee that they had to pay. Frankly, it was unfair. Jesus, knowing their evil intent, said, "You hypocrites, why are you trying to trap me? Show me the coin used for paying the tax. They brought him a denarius, and he asked them, whose image is this on the coin? What is the inscription? Then he said, give to Caesar what is Caesar, and give to God what is God. Pay the tax. If Jesus said pay the tax, they would be able to point out that he's sold out. He's sold out to the government. And if he said no, then they would immediately be able to point out that he was a revolutionary, and in both cases, they were hoping for his arrest. But Jesus told them, basically, where is the imprint in your life? Now, we live in a nation, we live in a county here, we live in a community, and it is important that we do our part to be a good citizen, which includes paying taxes. I will see a show of hand here. How many of you love taxes? But you pay them. It's what we do. It's how we share with each other to have the privileges, have the necessities of life that we have. And we work together to have laws. When I drove here this morning, well, Debbie actually drove, but when we drove here together, we came from Sharonville to here at Otterbein, so we went through Mason and Turtle Creek and all that. And along the way, there was decisions that were made as how fast we can go and how fast we can't go. It's for our own safety. It's for our own good. And if we decide to go faster, if Debbie decides to go faster, she never gets caught. But if I go faster, I'm probably going to get pulled over and get a ticket. We have to obey the laws. We have to do our part. And Jesus reminds us that we do have to be part of a community, part of a nation, and we need to contribute. We need to do our part. But he said to render to Caesar what is Caesar. We might say render to our country what is our country. But he says also to give to God what is God. Who has the bigger kingdom? God's kingdom is everything. Everybody. All of us. You, me, the kids in Nicaragua. The people that we're praying for in the Middle East and in Ukraine. They're all God's children. They're all for us to love on. That is the kingdom of God. So the question, and you'll know that's what's going to be your homework this week, is what is imprinted on you? What is your imprint? Where does the kingdom of God play into that? In other words, what is your priority? It's important, as I said, for us to be loyal to this nation that has been good to us in many ways. But it's also our duty to question when it doesn't align with issues of justice and peace and love, which is at the very foundation of what the kingdom of God is. There's a theologian that I was reading some this week that, normally when a preacher comes and quotes a theologian, you think, oh, well, that's nice. This is some book that he read or whatever. And it might have a neat thought or something like that. But the theologian's name is Dietrich Bonhoeffer. Maybe you've heard of Dietrich Bonhoeffer. Dietrich Bonhoeffer was a teacher of systematic theology. He was a pastor in Germany. And at one point, he was given the opportunity to come to the United States and preach at to teach at one of the top seminaries in America, Union Theological Seminary in New York City. But he only stayed about 2 weeks. And he had to go back home to Germany. Because this was the Germany of the late 1930s and 40s. The Germany that broke his heart because he saw what the church the church was allowing to have happen. How the church had aligned with one of the most dangerous people who ever lived. And most of them voted him into office, being Adolf Hitler, because in fact Hitler had locked into their fears, into their wants, and got them to totally miss the point of where the kingdom of God was and all that. In fact, he had wanted to make the church part of the state. And that sounded safe and good for most people. I think by now we know the results of that. Bonhoeffer said two things that I want to share with you this morning. He said that often the church, the followers of Jesus Christ, they're good at bandaging and healing up those who are crushed under the wheels of injustice. That often we're good at bandaging and healing up those who are under the wheels of injustice. Bonhoeffer said that we're called to also be the stick that gets stuck in the spoke of the wheel so the wheel can't move any further. Bonhoeffer also said this, because he was a citizen of a country, but he was also a follower of Jesus Christ. And he said this, he said, right into the middle of our lives that Jesus comes to us and lives with us. Jesus is in the middle of our lives, living with us. It is in the thick of life and citizenship that we lift high the cross and proclaim the love of God for all people. That's who we are. That's who we are. We're citizens of a nation, of a community, of a county. But at the end of the day, we are called to be followers of Jesus Christ and to lift up Christ, his cross, his love, his sense of justice. Question this week, whose imprint is on you?